In this video, we will explore how to use pivot tables, slices, and pivot charts to analyze your data. So in one of the videos that I created, I explored how to create Excel tables, format them, and even, uh, do some analytics in an Excel table. Now, to take it to the next level, I'll show you how to take the Excel table data, put it into a pivot table, and then create analytics that are easily digestible and very much interactive. So let's get right to it. So first, what we want to do is create a pivot table from this Excel table. So when you click in the table, the way you know it's in a table is if you look up here, you see that menu table design shows up. That means a table exists here. And this table is top revenue companies. Now, when I click in there and I hover over here, you see it has summarized with pivot table. So you click on that and then it selects all the range. And I want to keep this whole analytics in the same worksheet. So I don't want it to create a new worksheet. So I just click existing worksheet and I want to place it right here. And then I click OK. So what do I want to do next? I want to analyze it in such a way that, it makes sense and it's easy to just see insight by just looking, right? So a pivot table shows up like this, nothing added, and it's just default. So it's now your job or your role to drag any of this into these boxes and, create the insight or the structure you want to see. So when you think about it, you have to think about how do I want to see this data? What's the best way to actually look at this data? It's not just the dragging and dropping, it's actually the presentation and how easy people can digest your work. So first, I want to look at these companies in rows here, and I want to look at the revenues and the values because that's numbers, right? So if I come over here, you see now we have companies and revenues. What else do I want to add? I want to add the margins, which is like the profitability, what goes to your bottom line, because revenue is a top line. I'll add that. Then it shows me revenues and margin. And the difference between revenues and margins is that revenue is your top line and you incur some cost in doing business. And when you subtract those expenses, you are left with the margins. So it's like, if you're thinking about it, what you sell, you have to adjust it for what it costs you to produce and sell those products for you to get to your margins. So that's what I want to see here. Then what other insights do I want to see? I would like to see the country that these companies are in or are located at. So I'll drag this country here before the company. So that's what you do when you want things to roll under something like parent-child relationship. You have to drag, like I will just uncheck the country. You have to drag the country and drop it right below or right above the company, so that now every single company that's in China rolls under China. And if you just want to look at China by itself, this is what you'll look at. So basically, it's one way to summarize your data. And if you just wanted to look at like the totals, you could look at Finland. This is Finland here. You could look at France. You could decide to look at the companies that fall under France. You could look at Germany, how many companies in these top 100 companies from Germany, 9, and you could look at your data that way. That's one easy way to kind of analyze your data. So now we can decide to format this better. So if I click in this area here and I go to pivot table analyze and I come to this field setting, I can click there and I want to format this as currencies. So there's number format here. Click on that and this menu will pop up, format cells, and then you come over here, it's currencies. Remove the decimals. I don't want that. It's dollars. Fine. I like that. And then I want it to be in brackets if it's negative. I click OK and then click OK. There you go. I want to do the same for this gross margin too. I come back, pivot table analyze, table settings. I want to, so what you see here is it's summed right now. If you wanted to change this to count, if for example, like it's customers, number of customers, and you want to count them instead of summing, you could change it here. Or if it's average, for example, if it's an order value, price and data, you don't want it to be summing up your price and data. You want the average price. That's what you will click. If you wanted max, min, product, standard deviation. But in our own case, it is margin, so it's a sum. So we want to keep it that way, and we want to format these numbers because right now they look like just regular numbers, general settings. We want it to be in currency, so we click currency, we remove the decimals, and I always like to put my numbers in brackets if it's negative. You could keep it however you want, it's just my preference. But currency is important because you want to make sure you communicate what somebody's looking at. Is it general? Is it just any other thing, or is it dollars? So I click OK and click OK again. So now I have that formatting right. Now the next thing I want to do here is I want to show you some features of a pivot table. By just looking here, you can see you have an option to filter by country or by company. And what you can do here is you could decide, to select just one country here, China, and you will only see China and the companies that belong to China. Or you could decide to select multiple, or you could decide to select, like if you do that, then you see China and Brazil. So you just dice in the data the way you want. If you want to clear filter, you just clear over there. That will take it out. Or another way to clear that filter after you filtered for that is you just select everything again. Like if I had filtered for China and I only have China, if I want to remove the filter, all I need to do is select everything again, and it just brings everything back. So you can decide to switch what you filter by country, for example. So you can decide, because now I'm in company, I can decide to come over here and just filter what company I want to pick. Let's say I wanted to just see this two. So it just shows me that. I want to add another one. So you could easily just filter. So you see, whenever you have more options, they will be in this drop down here. For our options, we have country and company, and you see in the rows here. So if we want to clear it, we can clear it right from here, clear filter from company, or you could just decide to select all of this and click OK. So that's one way to play with that feature there. So another thing that we could do with this pivot table is we can add a slicer. So when you go into pivot table analyze, you see insert slicer here. So you could insert the slicer for country. And I'll drag this slicer here. You can format this slicer pretty easily. Right now it's one column. I don't want it to be like this. I want it to be covering more than one column. I will just have it into 5 and resize it. You could just drag it like that. I want everything to fit. So now I see all the countries. This is my pivot table. And then before I use that, I will add another thing again. I will add a pivot chart. So I click over here and then I click into this chart here. And this pivot chart is going to look crazy for now, but we will fix it. So right now there's too much data. So we'll do that. And I'll just put it over here. Okay. We'll fix this. Assuming we only want to see China. Now, one thing that you just see our pivot chart is showing us now what we want to see. It's showing us exactly, the analytics around China, and we could decide to remove this here so that, we don't have too much data. So if we want to just see US. We could click US. So this is just showing you all the companies in the United States. Over here, still super clustered, but if it's a smaller one, UK, so you only have that. So the pivot table, the slicer, picking something in a slicer summarizes your data for that specific criteria and shows you a chart that has that. So if somebody is more visual, they would like this. If somebody likes to see numbers and totals, they will like this one. So you can use the slicers and dices to actually, I call it slice and dice because it's like you're looking at this total data set and by just one click, you can actually show like a whole lot of data. These are all the companies that roll under China, and this pivot chart here shows you exactly, and this pivot chart is not static. You can actually decide to format it. You can come to the design and you can actually change the chart type depending on how you want to see it. If you want it to be a line chart, you click OK. So then it shows you that. And if you want a different chart type of chart, depending on what makes sense. But for this case, like the columns are better. So I'll just click that. So if we wanted Brazil, we'll just show that only one company and right there. If we wanted multiple, we could add Brazil and Italy. See, Brazil and Italy. We can add Finland. So it shows us Brazil, Finland, Italy. Here also Brazil, Finland, Italy. If we want to clear these criteria that we just have over here, all you need to do is just click there. And if you want to just Argentina by itself, if you want US by itself, you just click that. So this is for multiple select. And without it being highlighted, it's to select just individual countries. So you've now seen how to create a pivot chart, add slices, and also pivot charts to the right, and use the slicer to actually control what you see here and what you see on the chart. Now let's add more color to our pivot table. So pivot table, you can actually format it in many ways. Just like any other analytics, like a table, you can decide to add more information or remove certain things. Let's say, for example, here we have this pivot table. The name is just pivot table. We can give it a name and call it revenue. If we have many pivot tables, we will know that this pivot table is specifically for revenue. We can decide to design this pivot table in a certain way. We can have the banded rows, that's alternating colors, which is always helpful. So you could also decide that you want the subtotals to be in a certain way. This is do not show subtotals. We'll remove the subtotals, and that means your pivot table will be super clean. Or it could be short subtotals and it will add the subtotals. And if you want it like the grand total column off, it will just remove it. So here is on for rows and columns. So you can add, US grand totals, and you'll have the grand totals if you want it. So say it removes it. So you could literally only for columns there. If you want to take it back to, I like to leave it like this. And then the report layout, however you want it, it's compact right now. If you change this outline, it starts, moving this over here. I like to leave it. You could play with all of this. This is like repeat. So here you have USA all the way. And then you have a company name there, or you could, that's like when you decide to repeat it. But if you do not want to repeat it, all you need to do is just remove that. And in some cases, I like to leave it in this format, compact. That's the default one. And then blank rows. So sometimes you want your analytics to be much more cleaner. Let's say we remove this filter to show us everything. So we have all of our insights here. Sometimes what you could do is, if you come to this design here, you can insert a blank line after each item. So between Brazil and China, at the end here, you have a blank. Here, the same thing. So it kind of makes it easy for your work to be read or looked at, right? So if you want to remove that, all you need to do is remove the blank line. So in the tables, we had shown how to play with these options. So if you wanted to remove that, like, you could literally just click on that row headers, so it will bold it. The same way the column headers, if you don't want them to be bolded, if you want it to be bolded, you could just add it on there. And if you wanted to ban this, then you could do that. Otherwise, I like to leave it like that. Again, you can pick what type of pivot look you have. For example, if I change to that, see the pivot table, I'm picking options on what type of pivot table I want to have. There's a whole lot of options here. I would recommend that you go in here and play with this, because there's a whole lot that you can choose from depending on how you like to present your work. So my goal for this video was to show you how to create a pivot table from a pivot from a table, and also to add slices, and also to add a pivot table and use the slices to control all the analytics and the visuals, and present world-class work. So I hope you like this video. Let me know what you think.